Trees could move in a forest every night, and you probably wouldn't even notice. There are thousands of the things in even a small forest. You couldn't possibly know the position of every one. Sure, if your go-to spot had moved, you might be suspicious. But even then, if you don't go often, you'd probably just think you misremembered. Forests have few exact landmarks. It's the same all around. You'd be forgiven for not noticing the change, for not noticing that the trees are alive. But when they're at the edge of your window, bridging between the vast empty black of the night and the safety of your own home, you'll notice. When the outside world can tap upon your glass, you notice these things. A child cries, "I think I heard a noise at the window." The mother consoles, "It's just a branch in the breeze, honey. Go back to sleep." You read that and feel relief from the explanation. I read that and feel fear. What could be worse than a tree at the window? A tree that was not there yesterday. I've lived on the edge of Inwoods for over a decade. It acts as a border to the west of our small town. There's my street, with Inwoods just beyond the back fencing. The woods continue for miles until the next town. They attempted to chop down the trees a few years back to expand our quaint neighbourhood. The project was cancelled after just a few days, in favour of expanding east instead. What made them change their minds? What did they find that made them want to head in the exact opposite direction? They're afraid of something in those trees, deep within the roots, manifesting in the bark, perhaps even the leaves themselves, as they gracefully sway unsuspectingly. They have every right to be terrified. We all do. But I wasn't always scared of Inwoods. Quite the opposite, actually. I had a friend. Her name was Emily. We used to play in the woods often as children, climbing the trees, building dens. No one knew that place like us. If trees had moved back then, we'd have known about it. I wish I could still hold those memories fondly, but knowing what I know of the woods now, I can't in good conscience look back and smile. One memory does stick out to me in particular though. A special destination that I always held near and dear to my heart. A few minutes walk through the woods, staying on the dirt path and keeping to the clearings. There's a big tree. It stands alone proudly, as if there's something different about it. A forest by definition is a large group of trees, but this one didn't feel like part of it. It was a tree in a forest, yes, but it was not a part of the forest it resided in. This was its own thing. It was special. It quickly became our go-to spot, and one day, we marked it as our own by carving our initials into the bark. W.E. Emily went missing in those same woods just a few days later. It was our last time together. I think about it a lot. I was 12 at the time. My parents didn't let me join the local search parties. They told me I'd be scared. I convinced them to let me join just once, and my reaction to what I saw seemed to prove them right. They thought it was a sign of my trauma, but it wasn't. It was the cause. The big tree was gone. Where our initials once etched into a monument of nature itself was now nothing. Emptiness. Of course, no one knew the woods like me and Emily. Trees don't move, everyone told me. You're scared. It's okay, we all are. But trees don't move. It only took me 14 years to prove them wrong. The woods began their creeping a little over a month ago. I was getting ready for bed, yet as my glance fell over the window, I noticed a tree over the fence. One that was not there before. The first tree to take a midnight walk. At least, the first I'd noticed in over a decade. I found myself watching expectantly, but expectant of what I'm not sure. I thought maybe I could catch it moving, morphing in the moonlit nighttime air. But it just stood there, staring back at me. Make no mistake, this tree was staring. No eyes to see, but staring all the same. It felt like it wasn't a part of the forest. A tree in a forest that it does not belong to is a curious thought to some, but a feeling I'm used to. Every night when I went to bed, I would look out the window. More and more trees from the forest seemed to inch closer to my property. Each time, they stopped feeling like a part of the woods. Their membership to that club ends the moment they begin the move. They're their own collective once they do. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't even sure what to say. People thought I was crazy for implying that trees move as a child. Imagine what they'd think if I said it now. But a fact not spoken is a fact all the same. There's a horrifying thing one learns about forests when they begin to shift. They make noise. I wish I could say it was simply a rustling or creaking as they reroute to their new location. That would be almost peaceful. They make noises that get burnt into your brain. They screech, they roar, they groan in pain. Their loud whispers whimper through the air every night, reminding us that they're on the move. Their mournful lullaby does everything but help me sleep. They distill a fear in me that I haven't truly felt for 14 years. I knew this was connected to Emily's disappearance all that time ago. I'm not the only one that hears the noises, although I'm the only one who truly listens to their meaning. Many of my neighbours have put their houses up for sale already, because they can't stand the nightly symphony of nature. That's what they call it, nature. Nothing about this is natural. I knew the trees were specifically targeting me after just a week. No one else had trees at their window, except me. Once at my home, at the edge of what I call my own, they stopped getting closer. They moved every night, continuing their echoes, but they did not break through my walls to reach me. The gentle tapping of branches upon my window had an eerie rhythm to them, as if someone was knocking, asking to be let in. I could almost feel their roots below the ground, beating like veins in flesh. It only took 2 nights of that before I decided to chop the branches. I knew they'd just grow back or move to a new position, but I needed to try it. That's when I discovered why the expansion of our town was cancelled. Blood dripped from the branches as I cut them. This was not sap. This was red, oozing blood. It smelt metallic, and groans could be heard from deep within the forest with every chop of my tools. I had become the conductor of this symphony. For every chop, a loud, horrific screech echoed through the woods. It only took 5 before I couldn't continue. You may have noticed that I haven't referred to it as inwards for a while. That's because, as far as I'm concerned, this is no longer inwards. There is not a single tree that has remained in its spot. They've all chosen to disconnect themselves from inwards by moving inwards, towards our town and my life. I'd considered selling with my neighbours, but despite all the new questions I had, this was the closest I'd ever come to answering Emily's disappearance. Last week I had a dream. I hadn't dreamt in a while, or even slept much for that matter. I dreamt of Emily, now an adult, playing among the trees. We'd gone into the woods together to remind ourselves of our childhood. "Isn't this fun?" Emily spoke with an unclear voice in this dream, almost groans. But I could still understand her. "This is," I said, vaguely aware of the real world, acutely knowing I was sleeping. "I just wish you could really be here. Perhaps I never left. Perhaps I've been trying to find my way back to you." We stared at each other before she spoke again. "Perhaps you can join me." I jolted awake to the sound of the tapping at my window, and the distant choir of the forest. Yet something about this tapping felt different, almost more excited than usual. It scraped along my window after each one, as if to no longer ask to come in, but instead to invite me outside. I peeked through the window. Many of the trees had moved away from my home. Only one was right outside. I was still tired and my vision crooked, but I could clearly make out the letters engraved into the bark. W-E. For a second, I felt calm. I felt the fear of the past 14 years drift away. "Emily?" I spoke aloud. The forest responded with whispers that felt more gentle this time. I made my way downstairs and out the back of the house. I walked right up to the big tree and placed my hand over our initials. For a moment, there was peace. The groans stopped, as did the tapping of the window. I felt a pressure tightening in my hand, at the surface of my palm and fingertips. A creaking sound came not from the forest, but from this very spot on the big tree. It was growing around my hand. It wanted me to join it. It wanted me to become a part of the woods, my veins tangling with the roots, my thoughts tangling with the leaves. I pulled away, bits of skin tearing from the outer layers of my hand. The pain I felt was shared. The creaking returned from the forest, louder than I'd ever heard it. The forest is not Emily. Emily would not put me in a position like that. She would not ask me to give up my life to become something I am not. I believe the woods have tangled with Emily's memories. That which she was fond of is now what the trees are fond of. Pieces of her mind scattered across inwards the day she vanished. But her soul is not there. A collective network of trees have been given the gift of thought, and it's utterly terrifying.